It's this one for full screen. Yay. I think I'll start off in prayer. And dear Lord, please guide us and give us insight. And Lord, we rely on you for truth, and you are the anchor of our faith, of our soul, and we look to you in these times. And please bless our time together. Amen. So, I wanted to relook at that genealogy tree that at the last study, which was a number of weeks ago now, because that kind of summarizes a lot of the studies that we've done to date, and now with current events, it makes it a little more, what's the right word, relatable, I guess. And the study itself, I wanted to take a look at this obscure passage in the Old Testament and talking about the star of your God, which God, he reprimands the Israelites. What are you doing worshiping this image, the star image? And I did put a disclaimer this time. The information provided in the study is from a neutral position. In regards to current Middle East events, the studies aim to provide information, learning more about God's Word, and not intended to be used against any people group. I think that's quite important. This is what I believe the Bible is teaching, and it can come across controversial, it's what happened in the times of the disciples and Jesus. Hatred and acts of violence towards any people group are not condoned in any way. And salvation is found in no one else but Jesus Christ, not Muhammad, not Allah, not in the 613 commandments that the Judaism believes in, the mitzvahs, or the 7 Noahide laws. Both sides need Jesus. And so I get a bit hesitant when Christians are backing, one side. It's just like, hey, both sides need Jesus for salvation. And I got this packed screen, and we'll take a little bit of time to go through it, because in it is highlighted some of the lines that we see in the Middle East today. And it is a bit much to look at. So top right hand corner is in the green is Shem, progenitor of the dark-skinned Hebrews, tracing to Jesus from Seth. Ham, progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. Example, Egypt and Ethiopia. Japheth, progenitor of the Caucasian races. Now, this is from the Zondervan Pictorial Bible Dictionary and the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia. It's not me. All right, so it's not my conclusions. This is what gets taught in different Bible dictionaries and encyclopedias. So Shem, Ham, and Japheth were, of course, the 3 sons of Noah that entered Noah's Ark before the flood. And so those are the 3 sons that populated the earth after the flood. Noah and his wife didn't have any more, it's not recorded, any more children afterwards. So Japheth, we can start with him because that's in the Bible, that line is it's uneventful overall. So Japheth had 7 sons, and then he had a grandson named Ashkenaz. Now, 75% of modern Jews call themselves Ashkenazi Jews. All right, 90% in America, and 50% is Israel. We'll call them themselves Ashkenazi Jews. The link is to Japheth. not Shem. Right. So I think that's important um, to to take note. Um, so yeah, the green. So Adam and Eve, of course, have Seth. Now 10 generations from Adam to Noah. So 10 generations to the flood. 8 people were on the ark. Noah, his wife, 3 sons, and their wives. 8 generations from Shem to Abraham. Shem was still alive when Abraham, the first years of Abraham. Shem lived, I think, 500 and something years after the flood. So which is, that's quite a long time. Um, and I never realized. I thought, oh crap, it's 8 generations later and Shem's still around. And so now Abraham and Sarah, God gave Abraham the promise of he's going to have a son and become father of many nations, and children, descendants as numerous as the stars or the sand on the beach. 25 years went by. They got a bit impatient. Sarah says to Abraham, "Why don't you sleep with my maidservant Hagar and start, start a family or a line through her?" So Abraham did, and had an offspring named Ishmael. Now that's where many of the theologians believe that Ishmael is that's the line of modern day Arabs and the Muslim nations. I didn't put in this genealogy tree. Esau actually, not only did he marry into the Canaanite line, he actually married Ishmael's daughter named, I think, Basemath, something like that. He married a bunch of women. He also, and how does that play out today? I've never looked into it, but he did marry into that line as well. So Sarah, gave birth to Isaac, and then Isaac and Rebekah had Jacob. Now Jacob had 12 sons, and they became the 12 tribes of Israel as Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Now take note, some of these Bible verses. Genesis 24:3. Abraham said to his right-hand man that was in charge of his all his affairs and all his belongings, "You will not get a wife for my son Isaac from the daughters of the Canaanites." And then Genesis 28:1, Isaac talking to Jacob, "You shall not take a wife of the daughters of the Canaanites." Then Deuteronomy 7 verse 3, God says, "Do not take wives or husbands from among them, the Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Hivites, Jebusites, Girgashites, Perizzites, or the nations of Canaan." What does Esau do? "And Esau took himself wives of the daughters of the Canaanites." All right, and so now we got that line from Shem, but Esau's gone and married off into the Canaanite line. 14 generations from Abraham to King David, another 14 generations from David to the exile in Babylon, and then another 14 generations from exile to Jesus. Now, the wife of Ham, that's a busy line. That's where like 90% of the Israel's enemies have come from the Canaanite line, or the wife of Ham. Now I do believe that Cain was the offspring of Eve and Lucifer. It's not a very popular teaching, but I do believe the Bible tells us pretty bluntly. It's just uncomfortable. Genesis 3:15, God says, "I will put enmity between your offspring and hers." This God speaking to Lucifer and Eve. Genesis 3:13, God says to Eve, "What is this you have done?" This is the same expression that the sailors said to Jonah on the sinking ship when Jonah said to the sailors, there's a storm because I've run away from God. And they said to him, "What is this you have done?" It's something, it's like, why on earth would you do that? It's an exclamation mark. So it's exact same phrase. So that's what God said to Eve. And Eve replies, "The serpent beguiled me and I ate." I believe, so there's two meanings about beguiled. It's either a mental delusion or a sexual seduction. I believe there's sexual seduction there. 1 Timothy 2:14. Now Eve was completely deceived and became involved in transgression. I believe that adultery was that it became involved in transgression. For the first part of that verse in Timothy, it says, "Now Adam was not the one who was deceived. It was Eve who was completely deceived and became involved in transgression." What else? And so, yes, we got Lucifer, Cain, and then the flood. And there is one of the problems that we know there was Nephilim before and after the flood. How on earth did that happen, as it's not recorded that fallen angels came again after the flood? So I believe it was the wife of Ham. When the sons of God, fallen angels, came into the daughters of men, possibly Cain, and bore the children to them. What I found interesting was the Jewish legends state that the fallen angels went after Cain's daughters. And so when it says daughters of men or sons of men, it's a Hebrew idiom for meaning daughters of Cain or sons of Cain, particularly before the flood. And I was surprised how many sources actually unpack it. So what do we got here? 4 sons from Ham and his wife: Put, Cush, Canaan, and Mizraim. Canaan seemed to be the most prolific out of the bunch, though Nimrod himself was probably the most well known across many religions. So Canaan had a son named Sidon, and then father of the Sidonians. Now Jezebel was a Sidonian princess. She killed Israel's prophets. So she's from that line. Goliath was a Philistine giant, again from the same line, and Goliath, of course, had, I think it was 4 brothers. Same, one of them had 6 fingers and on each, or I guess 12 fingers and 12 toes. He was exceptionally large. Sodom and Gomorrah. Guess who inhabited Sodom and Gomorrah? The Canaanites. So you got the Jebusites, the Rephaim. The Rephaim is a generic term for gigantic Canaanite tribes. The Amorites, the Hivites, the Hittites. Now, where do I go to next? Nimrod established Assyria and Babylon. Of course, many generations later, Assyria took over Israel, 10 tribes of Israel, and then Babylon took over Judah and I believe the tribe of Benjamin. Now, of course, Nimrod also built the Tower of Babel. interesting, the term here, the sons of men built a city and a tower. It could very well mean the sons of Cain built a city. And where else? Now the Nephilim, giants, were in the land of Canaan, the promised land, who eateth their inhabitants. The sons of Anak, the giant, King Og of Bashan, the Amorite leader, all from this same line. King Og's bed was made of iron, 13.5 feet long. Kind of gives you an idea that he was a rather large person. Now, Esau married into this line. And where God said in Genesis 3:15, I'll put enmity between your offspring and hers, the Edomites inherited that enmity. So in Ezekiel 35:5 and Amos 1:11, it says the Edomites had perpetual enmity towards Israel. Esau didn't, but his descendants did. So Doeg the Edomite killed 85 Israelite priests, along with their wives and children. Esau had a son named Eliphaz. Some Jewish scholars point out that Eliphaz or the mother of Amalek, was both his daughter and concubine. Because in one place in Scripture it says Eliphaz's daughter was Timnah, and then another place it says his concubine was Timnah. So there was some incestual it's going on, but they had Amalek and the father of the Amalekites. Amalekite means to licketh blood. They were not a good people. And now we're not generally told that Haman, who plotted to kill all the descendants of Judah in the book of Esther, was a descendant. He was an Amalekite. King Saul was ordered to kill off all the Amalekites. He didn't. He kept alive the king and a couple of his, well, at least a son. And so Haman was a descendant. And he wanted to wipe out all the descendants of Judah. Let's a couple more things. The Edomites were conquered. This is probably the most important event to make sense out of this. Edomites were conquered in 126 BC by the Israelites, and they were forced to become Jews. They became incorporated in Judaism, and they were simply known as Jews. They established the Herodian dynasty, which is an Edomite dynasty, within Judea, and they started to overtake Judaism through positions of power. So King Herod, of course, was Edomite. The Herodians, if you recall in the book of Mark, the Pharisees conspired with the Herodians to plot the death of Jesus. The teachers of the law, Sanhedrin, high priests, again, we're looking Edomite, including Judas. 11 disciples were from Galilee. Judas was from southern Judea, in the heart of Edomite country, or Idumea. And then we got Jesus and John the Baptist saying, "Hey, you guys, to the Edomite Pharisees, ye race or offspring of serpents." And Jesus is in this conversation with the Pharisees. He says, "Hey, I know you're descendants of Abraham, but your father's the devil." And they respond, "We are not born as a result of sexual immorality." Again, coming from this line. And so we got this takeover of Judaism right around the time of Jesus, so much so that by 200 AD, Pharisaical teaching, which Jesus warned against, became synonymous with Judaism. So we got a complete overtaking of basically the Hebrew religion by the Edomite line. And then Jesus gives this, oh, it might be important, sorry. Hello, this is Phil. Hello. It can't be that important if they don't answer back. After the, where are we now? Revelations 2:9 and Revelations 3:9 both say, but beware of the people who call themselves Judeans but are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Hello, this is Phil. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah. Sorry, there's the fence in the way. Yeah, not anymore. Okay. No, cool. All right, see ya. John Austin. Cutting grass Sunday. Anyways. Just quickly go over again. Ashkenaz, between the Black and Caspian Sea. That's where a lot of the Ashkenazi Jews originated from and then migrated over to Rhineland in modern-day Germany. Shem, more Mesopotamia here. This is the same region, different map. Again, the Caucasus Mountains, where we get the word Caucasian from. Again, fair-skinned. Mount Ararat, so Noah's Ark landed in the mountains of Ararat here. And Mesopotamia is sometimes called the cradle of life because that's where civilization started to begin after the flood. And so we got Chaldea and Ur here. So Genesis 11:31, Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur and the Chaldeans to go to Canaan, but when they got to Haran, they settled there. From the 1836 research paper, Anacalypsis, an inquiry into origins of languages, nations, and religions. So we're almost 200 years old. In consequence of the prejudice, for it is really prejudice against the Negro, or I ought rather to say against the possibility of a Negro being learned and scientific, arising from an acquaintance with the present Negro character, I admit with great difficulty the theory of all the astronomical knowledge of the Chaldees having been acquired or invented by his race, and that the Chaldees were originally Negroes. So that's my connection with Abraham, and not only that the ancient Hebrews were dark-skinned, but possibly Negro. And I wanted to make sure that, about was Abraham Chaldean? And Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, it says, this is, he's the source information for the statement. The fact that the Hebrew people derived from the Chaldeans was clearly demonstrated, since Abraham was Chaldean and his ancestors inhabited that land. And a very interesting article out of the Biblical, or the Institute of Biblical Archaeology, Abraham, father of nations, scientist, mathematician, and astronomer. Ancient records speak of an astronomer among the Chaldeans who had a special relationship with the mighty God. I found the article fascinating because it filled in some questions about what happened to Lot's father, right? Um, yeah, so it looks the the ancient records speak that the descendants of Shem, they had become idolaters, and Abraham was, through astronomy and so on, was trying to prove to them that there was a creator God, and it didn't go down well, and so he. Out of that, one God called the family to move out of there, and it looks like, or there's a possibility that Abraham's brother got killed. That was a long recap, wasn't it? Sorry. I went through that quick. But that was, yeah. Any comments before I go on to the actual little bit? The study won't actually take that long, but any, nothing, sorry. So God, in the book of Amos, God states to the Israelites, "Have ye offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, O house of Israel? But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chiun your images, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves." Now, interesting, the first Christian martyr, Stephen, quotes this before he got stoned to death. Again, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, the star of your God, Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. And we don't hear about too much teaching about it, and so I started to dig a little. Chiun, an image or a pillar, probably a statue of the Syrian Babylonian god of the planet Saturn, used to symbolize Israelite apostasy. Another description here, name of an idol worshipped by the Israelites in the desert. It was most probably the planet Saturn, worshipped by Eastern nations as an evil spirit to be propitiated by sacrifices. In Remphan, Easton's Bible Dictionary, Chiun is rendered by the LXX, which is the Greek, or the Old Testament in Greek, and this name is adopted by Luke in his narrative of the Acts. These names represent the star god Saturn or Moloch. And we get to, again, just in the yellow here, the star god. A star was put on the head of the images of the idol representing Saturn, which is important, because why on earth would they take a image and put it on the head of the idol representing a star? Rabbi Isaac Caro terms the planet Saturn the star of Israel, appealing to the unanimous opinion of all astrologers. Oh, why did that? No, it's Jameson Fawcett Brown Bible Commentary. The star of your God. Rabbi Isaac Caro says all the astrologers represented Saturn as a star of Israel. Probably there was a figure of a star on the head of the image of the idol. This hasn't saved properly. To represent the planet Saturn. That's the last of the... but anyway, so have we seen pictures of the planet Saturn? So that's the hexagon on the north, I guess the pole you want to call it. It's a storm. That's always in a hexagonal position.
Is it in the center of it?
Correct. And so it's interesting, yes. So way back, a few thousand years ago, the Israelites had this image of a star. It's a hexagram, but not a. So this is a hexagon, but it would represent the planet Saturn. So we got. We'll take a look at the Star of Israel, also called the Shield of David. Some people will call it the Seal of Solomon. The Jewish symbol, composed of two overlaid equilateral triangles, form a six-pointed star. It appears not in just Jewish background, but I guess across a number of religions. The term Magen David, or which in Jewish liturgy signifies God as the protector or shield of David. It gained currency among medieval Jewish mystics who attached magical powers to King David's shield. Just as earlier non-Jewish magical traditions had referred to the five-pointed star as a seal of Solomon, Kabbalists popularized the use of the symbol as a protection against evil spirits. So Jewish legends have it that on King David's shield was the six-pointed star, because it was a sign of protection. That picture with the star on a shield is from the 1985 movie King David, starring Richard Gere. So in the movie, not just David had that shield, but actually everyone in the army is depicted with the Star of Israel. What we know as the Star of Israel, as it's as a sign of protection. So anyone in the Bible that had something on their head signifying protection. Cain, I don't have the Bible verse up here and I forgot to put it in. So after Cain killed Abel, God put a mark on his head to signify, a sign of protection. There would have been, at the time of the flood and so on, there would have been people would have known exactly what that sign would have been. So that's my, I guess, connecting the dots of Israelites get reprimanded for worshiping, the star of your God. It symbolizes the a protection, and what's the third part? And they were putting it on idols' heads. I want to get into this. Cain and Chiun have very similar Hebrew root words. Chiun is Kun, and Cain is also Kun as well. Similar, Chiun and Cain. Some suspect it's the same, or Chiun is just 1,000 or 2,000 years later from another country, but similar name. This was more of a matter of interest, I guess, that Cain and Chiun, the root names were very, very similar. So while the Israelites were wandering the desert for 40 years, they made a tabernacle unto Chiun. A star was possibly put on the head of the images of the idol representing Saturn. The term Magen David signifies God as the protector. The Lord placed a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. From a Bible commentary, there seems little doubt that the sign which Yahweh gave to Cain was a tattoo mark, probably on his forehead, to show all men that Cain was under his protection, and thus to save his life. So that's my, it's something to chew over. I don't have overwhelming evidence for this, but it's, yeah, that's my conclusion on it. And there's one more bit of information. 666, the epitome of numerical triangularity. This hasn't saved well onto my laptop. So this is from an article from someone that just liked mathematics. So it says, as depicted below, 666 pennies may be laid out in close formation on a flat surface to form the 36th numerical triangle. While in general, triangular numbers are comparatively rare, 666 is unique. Its uniqueness resting on the fact that all its numerical attributes are themselves triangles. So 3 equals number of sides. Of course, then you can, out of, let's say, 3 coins or whatever, you can make a triangle out of it. 6, radix dependent component of 666. 36, number of counters forming a side equals number of 666 as triangle. 66, radix dependent component of 666. 105, number of counters forming outline of 666 as a triangle. To further emphasize the remarkable singularity of this number, we observe the sum of these attributes, 3 plus 6 plus 36 plus 66 plus 105 equals 216, or 6 times 6 times 6. The highest prime factor of 666 is 37, this being the only number whose counters may be arranged symmetrically on a flat surface. Some of this I understand. I had to look up again, refresh my memory on what a prime factor is and so on. But the big thing here is all the formations of the epitome of, I guess, 666 in triangular numerical triangularity. Yeah, the incidence of 3 sixes in the digits of the angular dimensions of all equilateral triangles. And I guess one of the points was, before we start putting up the Star of Israel on our Facebook pages and so on, yeah, there's some meaning behind it. We're not exactly sure what it, what it is. And again, God reprimanded the Israelites for having this image. Anyways, any thoughts on that? I rushed through that pretty, I feel like did anyways, but any thoughts or comments? And I'm not saying the mark of the beast is going to be the Star of Israel. All right, I'm not saying, that, but it does fit. Who's the father of Cain? I believe Lucifer is. Yeah. It does start to.
I would say that star came down that line, down that side of the line, for sure.
Yeah, so that's.
Well, and one thing that you're looking at, you're saying that it was one pretty much put on top of a pillar that was made for sacrificial things, pretty much. And then the next one is the hexagon of Saturn.
Yeah.
Which, if you draw lines all around that, so you've got your.
Yeah, the hexagram and hexagon. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that it's a very positive semblance that.
Oh no, I've seen a number of Christians put it up on their Facebook pages. I stand with Israel and with the star, and it's like, it might not be a good idea.
I don't know if people realise that that's been handed down like that.
No,
I've never associated anything positive with that.
Right.
Image.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah, most symbols have like other meanings these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realise though, like what those meaning those images may represent.
Yeah. Now, I stumbled on this 4 years ago, and it's just the timing is a bit awkward now to, you
Yeah.
know, it's just, if it was before calving, or did this, it wouldn't have been too
So
bad.
bad. Yeah.
And now it's, oh, yeah. So we do have to bear in mind that there are a group of religious leaders in Israel that are trying to um, establish the third temple. They're trying to usher in their Messiah, who we believe is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
And the Antichrist, the Bible teaches, is going to absolutely slaughter Christians. Anyone who, doesn't take the mark. So I think we, again, from a neutral position, we just got to be aware where it's going to lead, what it all means. I'm not sure, but when I saw this 3, 4, it would have been close to 4 years ago now. I just I, be a bit cautious. Yeah. So where it leads, I'm not exactly sure, but it does follow the more I dig, it starts to cement in what I've, researched, and I've put in an easy 200 hours of research on these different subjects and the few different papers I've written, and I've never at one point, like this, let's say with Abraham, I just wanted to make sure, okay, was he just living in Chaldea as a foreigner, or was he a Chaldean? And so that's why I looked it up yesterday and just wanted to make sure, am I on the right path or not? Then I saw Josephus, who is an exceptional source information, saying, hey, Abraham was Chaldean, and you start to piece things together, and it's like, yeah, this is still all making sense. Yeah, but it is, the current events in the Middle East are unsettling, and particularly if Russia starts to get involved, because yes, in the middle of the chaos, that's when the Antichrist, rises up and does that 7-year peace deal. But we still do not have daily sacrifices, but could happen next year because they have the red heifers to be able to cleanse, I guess, the priests to be able to do daily sacrifices. So a year is not too far away. They don't need a temple to do daily sacrifices. So,
And the temple is being resurrected now.
I'm not sure. I've heard various
Sources.
things. Yeah.
But that's where they've also got that underground one that you've spoken about.
Oh,
today,
that's right. Yes.
which technically could come into play, couldn't it? So,
Yeah. The Sanhedrin is all there. How come I can't turn it off now?
and the other thing is you got a lot of Israelis and that, or Jews, and they're all coming back to Israel at the